The other night I was scrolling through a streaming service, and I noticed something strange. The little thumbnail description for a new fantasy epic, the one, a young hero from a forgotten village, gets a call to adventure, descends into a world of darkness, and returns with a secret that can save everyone, was almost identical to the plot of a sci-fi blockbuster from a few years ago. And then it hit me. That same basic story is also the story of Luke Skywalker and Frodo Baggins, but it goes deeper than that. It's also the story of King Arthur and the story of the Buddha. It's the core of the Epic of Gilgamesh, written down 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. You find this exact same narrative blueprint in ancient myths from cultures that were separated by oceans and millennia, cultures that could have had no possible contact with one another. They all independently came up with the same fundamental journey. It's not just a trope, and it's too consistent to be a coincidence. It's as if this story is somehow hardwired into us, a kind of universal human software. And that raises a really unsettling question. Why are we all, across all of history, telling ourselves the exact same story? What does that story say about the structure of reality itself?
That's a really profound question you're raising there.
It really struck me, the consistency.
Yeah, it taps right into something fundamentally human, doesn't it?
Right.
Our constant drive to find meaning, to see patterns in everything.
Right, to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And you've put your finger on it. We're not just like passive receivers of reality. We're actively constructing our understanding.
So this universal human software idea.
It suggests these deep structures, maybe not just out there in the world, but inside us, guiding how we interpret things.
Like a pre-wiring for certain kinds of stories or certain ideas.
Precisely. Whether it's these epic myths or, our sense of justice or even how we experience consciousness itself.
Okay.
So today, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. We'll look at these universal human blueprints, you could say.
Across different fields.
Yeah, pulling together philosophy, international law, even cognitive science. It's a journey to see what these patterns tell us about, being human.
And maybe about reality itself. Like I was wondering.
Maybe so. Let's see where it takes us.
I came across an article recently that really made me think. It argued that by focusing only on what we can measure and observe, modern science sometimes misses the bigger picture, the things that give us meaning, our sense of justice, and our shared stories. It got me thinking about how these abstract ideas show up in very real human lives. Try to imagine a young woman named Anya in Leipzig, East Germany, back in 1989. She's a university student, and all she's ever known is the German Democratic Republic. The state tells her it's a worker's paradise, but she sees the gray conformity and feels the quiet fear. Through smuggled radio broadcasts, she hears about the West. Its democracies are chaotic, its leaders are flawed, its societies are unequal. There is no perfect, observable example that tells her this is the system that works. Yet deep inside her, there's a conviction, an unshakable intuition, that people should be able to speak their minds without looking over their shoulder, that they should have a say in who governs them. This feeling isn't based on an empirical study of political systems. It's a gut feeling about human dignity. So, on a cold Monday evening, she joins the swelling crowds in the streets. She isn't marching for a specific model of capitalism or a particular Western constitution. She's marching for an idea, an ideal of freedom that she feels is a birthright. For me, as I read these historical accounts, Anya's story perfectly illustrates what the article calls a transcendental political intuition. It's this deep, inherent human impulse for just governance that fuels movements for democracy and human rights across the world, even when the reality of existing democracies is messy and flawed. It suggests that the demand for dignity is a universal constant, something that transcends cultural and political specifics. Okay, so let's dig into this idea of a transcendental political intuition.
It's a really powerful concept.
Yeah, it suggests we have this sort of a priori grasp, like a built-in sense of what good government should feel like.
Exactly. Not something you figure out just by looking at polls or economic data. It comes before that.
Like an internal compass for politics.
Right. And it judges the systems we actually see.
And it's strong enough to make people do incredible things, right? Things that go against their own self-interest even.
That's the really striking part. Why risk everything for an idea like freedom?
Because if you just looked at democracies empirically, you see the flaws, the corruption, the inequality.
Oh, absolutely. The data could easily lead you to think, well, this system is a mess.
But people still demand it.
Yeah.
All over the world. That persistence.
It doesn't quite fit a purely observational, pragmatic model, does it?
No. It points to something deeper, this inherent yearning you mentioned.
Yeah, for fairness, for dignity, like it's wired in.
An ideal, not just a practical calculation.
That's a great way to put it. And on his story, like you read, it captures that perfectly.
Her marching wasn't about finding the best system based on evidence.
No, it was that inner conviction, what ought to be, even when the what is pretty flawed.
And you're saying this isn't just in politics.
Not at all. We see similar structures in morality. Think about Adam Smith.
The economist.
And
Right.
philosopher. He talked about the impartial spectator.
Okay, what's that?
It's like an internal judge. That feeling of outrage you get when you see injustice, even if it doesn't affect you directly.
Ah, right, that gut reaction.
Exactly. Or think about Levinas and the ethical infinite.
That sounds deep.
It is. The idea that just seeing another person's face puts this absolute ethical demand on you, something beyond self-interest or even evolution.
So these aren't just philosophical ideas.
They point towards a kind of transcendental ethical structure within us, our sense of right and wrong, empathy.
It's not all just culture or biology.
Those play a role, of course,
Yeah.
but there seems to be this deeper universal framework for ethics, just like for politics.
A universal sense of fairness, of dignity.
It seems that way, resonating across humanity.
And when you look for how this intuition, this sense of justice, actually shows up in the world, you often land on the rule of law, right?
Absolutely. And it's crucial not to see that as just some dry legal term.
It's more fundamental than that.
It's a principle that's thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And the key thing, the absolute core of it,
Is that everyone is subject to the law,
everyone, including the government itself. That's the critical distinction.
as opposed to rule by law.
Exactly. Where the government just uses law as a tool to control people, but stays above it.
Like in authoritarian states.
Right. Under the rule of law, the president, the prime minister, they follow the same rules as you or me.
And this is seen as a universal value.
It is. The UN General Assembly puts it right up there with human rights and democracy. Essential stuff.
It's even in the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yep, Goal 16. Peace, justice, strong institutions. It's recognized as fundamental for a stable, fair society.
So not just theory, but a practical necessity.
For predictability, accountability, protecting basic freedoms, it's the bedrock.
You really can't separate it from democracy then.
Not in any meaningful way. I mean, how can you have a democracy if who holds office isn't decided by law, but by, say, force?
Good point. The legitimacy has to come from the law.
And it goes beyond just elections. For democracy to be stable, especially now with all the polarization,
Yeah.
you need what political scientists call a self-enforcing equilibrium.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means the people in power, the politicians, have to choose to respect the rules, the limits on their power.
Even when it's inconvenient for them.
Especially then, when disagreements happen, you solve them through the established legal ways, not by breaking the rules.
So the system kind of perpetuates itself through everyone agreeing to play by the rules.
That's the idea. It stabilizes things. The government acts through law, but is also bound by law.
But you said it's vulnerable.
It is, because ultimately it depends on us, the citizens, and who we elect.
If people vote for leaders who don't respect the rule of law,
then it can fall apart pretty quickly. We've seen that happen. Even if you have great laws written down, if there's no fundamental respect for them.
especially in key institutions, like the police or military.
Absolutely critical. If they don't uphold the law, it doesn't matter what the books say.
Okay, so we have this universal drive for dignity, for justice, manifesting as democracy and the rule of law.
Right.
But then you run smack into this whole debate about cultural relativism.
Ah, yes. The argument that, well, maybe human rights aren't quite universal in practice.
That they need to be applied differently based on, local traditions or regions.
It sounds reasonable on the surface, maybe. Like cultural sensitivity.
But in reality, it often creates this huge gap, right?
Yeah.
Between countries saying they respect human rights and what actually happens.
Exactly. It can become a shield, a justification for authoritarianism or abuse, all under the guise of respecting culture.
And the crucial point is, no tradition should justify denying basic rights.
Never. The moment a tradition is used to silence people or discriminate or hurt them, it stops being culture and starts being oppression.
And this claim that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR, is just some Western imperialist thing.
That argument just doesn't hold water when you look at the history.
The drafting committee was incredibly diverse, wasn't it?
Amazingly so. Yes, Eleanor Roosevelt chaired it, but look who else was there. Humphrey from Canada, Cassin from France.
Malik from Lebanon, Chang from China.
Right. Chang was key, bringing in Confucian ideas, understanding Islamic thought. Santa Cruz from Chile, Dukes from the UK.
Leah Malott from the Soviet Union, Hodgson from Australia.
And Hansa Mehta from India, a Hindu woman, independence activist, fierce advocate for women's rights.
So it wasn't just one perspective at all.
No, it was a genuine melting pot of global ideas. And then all 58 UN members at the time reviewed it. Countries with Buddhist Muslim populations.
And the final vote.
48 in favor, 8 abstentions, 0 against. That's pretty remarkable from 1948.
Plus, it included social and economic rights from the start.
Which shows that non-Western, non-liberal influence was there right from the beginning. It was meant to be comprehensive.
So when governments today talk about cultural relativism,
You have to see it as a political move, often.
like using Asian values, interpretations of Confucianism about harmony and hierarchy.
Right, using that to justify state control and push back against calls for individual rights.
Even if it's a selective reading of Confucianism.
Often it is. As Amartya Sen called it, an invention of a tradition to serve power.
And the Islamic approach.
Yeah.
Like the Cairo Declaration.
Similar pattern. It lists rights, but then adds that crucial caveat.
Subject to Sharia principles.
Exactly. Which opens the door to justifying things like taking life for a Sharia reason, discrimination against women or non-Muslims, restricting speech.
Because Articles 24 and 25 basically say Sharia trumps everything else in the document.
Precisely. It allows states to effectively negate the rights they seem to be granting, using religious tradition as the ultimate justification.
It really makes you ask that question.
Who benefits from these arguments?
Yeah. Michael Ignatьev's point seems key here.
That it's not philosophy, it's politics.
A struggle between established powers, traditional authoritarian, and the human rights activists within those cultures.
Exactly. These activists aren't importing Western values. They're demanding their own inherent rights from within their own societies.
So the relativist argument is often just defending local power structures.
Often, yes, against internal challenges. Ignatieff argues that intervention or advocacy is justified by the demands of the oppressed themselves.
Not by imposing outside values.
Right. And Amartya Sen pushes back hard against these sweeping generalizations about whole cultures anyway.
Asian values, Western civilization. Too simple.
Way too simple. Sen highlights the diversity within any tradition. Sure, some Confucianism emphasizes order, but Buddhism often emphasizes freedom and choice.
So you can't just paint a whole continent or religion with one brush.
Absolutely not. Cultures are dynamic, full of different ideas, many totally compatible with universal rights.
And we're seeing this relativistic trend playing out now, aren't we? With real consequences.
Unfortunately, yes. Look at Russia using traditional values to justify persecuting LGBTQ+ people.
The laws against non-traditional propaganda.
It's a direct contradiction of the state's duty to fight discrimination, not promote it.
Or India's flip-flopping on decriminalizing homosexuality.
Even though it was later overturned, it showed how fragile rights can be. And globally, it's still dire in many places.
Over 70 countries criminalizing sexual orientation. Death penalty in some.
It's shocking. And then you see the erosion in places we thought were more stable democracies.
Like Turkey under Erdogan. Hungary under Orban.
Orban explicitly saying the era of liberal democracies is over, aiming for an illiberal state.
These are direct attacks on those universal values we started with.
From within and without, challenging that core intuition for dignity.
Which brings up another really tricky area for international law.
The horizontal effect.
Yeah. Law usually works vertically, state down to people. But what if non-state groups violate rights? Ethnic communities, religious groups, terrorists.
That's a huge challenge. But courts, like the European Court of Human Rights, are saying states do have a duty to protect people from those kinds of violations, too.
It expands state responsibility quite a bit.
It has to, especially with large-scale migration.
How so?
Well, sometimes harmful practices, intra-communitarian abuse, things happening within a migrant community based on their old norms.
Get transplanted to the new country.
Exactly. So the host country needs to step up, make sure everyone has equal rights, regardless of their background.
And this is where the misunderstood respect for culture comes in.
Yes, states absolutely should not lower human rights standards for certain groups out of some misguided deference.
Things like FGM, forced marriage, unequal inheritance.
Hate speech, submission of women. These aren't cultural practices to be respected. They're human rights violations. Full stop.
We've seen conflicts in Europe over this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Veils, Sharia arbitration, gender segregation.
Yes, and allowing sectarianism, different rights for different groups within one country, is basically denying universal rights altogether. It's a dangerous path.
Then I saw this story online, a blog post by a Japanese robotics engineer named Kenji. His journey felt like something straight out of an ancient myth. Kenji's beloved grandmother had spent her last years in profound loneliness, and this experience became his call to adventure. He dedicated his career to creating a sophisticated companion robot for the elderly. His initial proposals were dismissed by his superiors. They told him it was sentimental and impractical. This was his refusal of the call. But he persisted, working in his own time. He faced endless technical setbacks and moments where he almost gave up. His road of trials. His breakthrough came from an unexpected place. A conversation with a retired literature professor who lived next door. The professor knew nothing of coding, but he spoke of narrative, connection, and the human need to be heard, giving Kenji the supernatural aid he needed to rethink the robot's core programming. After a final intense year of work, his ultimate boon, he finally had a working prototype. He brought it not to a tech conference, but to his grandmother's old nursing home. Watching the robot, which he named Tomodo, patiently listened to a resident's stories, Kenji felt he completed his quest, his return with the elixir. Reading his account, I was struck by how perfectly his modern technological struggle mapped onto the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell found in myths worldwide. Kenji wasn't trying to be a mythical hero, but his experience shows that this archetypal pattern is more than just a storytelling device. It's a deep psychological blueprint for how humans face challenges, innovate, and create meaning, proving its enduring relevance in our contemporary world. Okay, let's unpack this hero's journey then. Joseph Campbell's monomyth.
Yeah, this idea of a universal story blueprint.
Transcending culture, geography, time.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. He saw this core pattern repeating everywhere.
And he broke it down into 3 main acts.
Right. Departure, initiation, and return. Leaving the known, facing trials, coming back, changed.
And within those, the 12 stages. Once you know them, you really do see them everywhere.
It starts with the ordinary world.
Right, just normal life. Like Kenji the engineer before the big idea.
Then the call to adventure disrupts that.
His grandmother's loneliness sparking the robot idea.
Often followed by the refusal of the call. Hesitation, fear.
Kenji's boss is shutting him down. Impractical.
But then, meeting the mentor. Someone offering guidance.
The literature professor next door. Unexpected wisdom.
Which leads to crossing the threshold, committing to the journey.
Kenji deciding to build the robot anyway on his own time. That's Act 1.
Then Act 2, initiation, the real transformation zone.
Tests, allies, and enemies. Facing challenges, finding help, dealing with obstacles.
Kenji's endless technical problems. His road of trials.
Leading to the approach to the inmost cave. Facing the biggest fear or challenge.
Maybe for Kenji, it was the sheer complexity, the fear of failure.
Then the ordeal, the central crisis. Life or death, symbolic death and rebirth.
That final intense year of work, pushing through constant failure.
Sounds like it. Surviving that brings the reward. Seizing the sword.
Gaining the prize. For Kenji, the working prototype, Tomo.
Okay, so reward gained. Act 3, the return.
Starts with the road back, often facing more danger on the way home.
Maybe getting Tomo ready for real use, fighting last-minute bugs.
Then the resurrection, one final test, purification, proving a mastery.
Bringing Tomo to the nursing home, that final emotional test.
Could be. And finally return with the elixir.
Bringing something valuable back to the world.
Kenji's elixir wasn't just metal and code, it was connection, easing loneliness.
Wow. It maps so cleanly.
It really does, and you see it constantly. Star Wars, Luke Skywalker.
Totally. Ordinary farm boy, Obi-Wan mentor, Death Star ordeal, brings back balance.
Harry Potter, Under the Stairs, Hogwarts Call, Voldemort ordeal, saves the wizarding world.
Elphaba in Wicked. Maybe not a classic hero, but that transformation.
Absolutely follows the pattern. Frodo with the ring, Neo in the Matrix, Dorothy in Oz.
It's everywhere.
And it's more than just plot structure, right? It points to something deeper.
Shared human stories. Our need for narrative.
Yes, and maybe even to Jung's idea of the collective unconscious.
Okay, explain that a bit.
Jung thought that beneath our personal unconscious, there's this deeper layer shared by all humans, inherited, not learned.
Containing what?
Universal patterns, images, archetypes, like the hero, the mentor, the shadow, the great mother.
These aren't specific characters, but templates.
Exactly. Blueprints for human experience. The hero's journey is like the ultimate archetypal story playing out.
So it reflects universal psychological stuff. Growth, facing challenges.
Precisely. It helps us make sense of transformation, identity, purpose. That's why it resonates so deeply across cultures and times.
That makes sense. Its power isn't just academic.
Mm.
Psychologically connects because those hero challenges,
Yeah.
they feel like our own struggles, right?
Definitely. Metaphors for overcoming doubt, fear, injustice in our own lives,
We see ourselves in them.
and gain courage from their journey.
And it's so adaptable. Ancient myths, modern movies, even my trip to see Wicked.
Oh, yeah. How did that fit the pattern?
Okay, so picture this. Me, Saturday afternoon, I'm usually a ribs and sci-fi guy.
Yeah.
Musical theater, not my ordinary world.
Uh-huh.
Then my daughter hits me with the call to adventure. Dad, come see Wicked? My instant reaction, refusal of the call. Do I have to?
Classic refusal.
But then my wife steps in, meeting the mentor, gently reminds me about, quality time, maybe you'll actually like it,
Ah, the wise guide.
which leads to crossing the threshold. Me reluctantly getting in the car, entering the unknown territory of Midtown Manhattan traffic,
The journey begins.
then the tests, allies and enemies.
Oh.
My daughter rolling her eyes at my comments, the cramped seats, the guy checking his phone.
Yeah.
The perils of the theater.
The ordeal. Sitting still for 3 hours, popcorn fingers, surrounded by show tunes, fighting the urge to explain how it's basically Star Wars.
A true test of endurance.
But the reward, actually sharing that joy with my family, seeing my daughter happy,
Worth it.
the resurrection. Her actually admitting my Star Wars with brooms comment wasn't totally crazy. Small win.
Validation.
And the return with the elixir. A slightly less skeptical view of musicals and major dad points.
See?
It works even for mundane stuff.
That's brilliant. It really shows how ingrained that pattern is.
So for creators, filmmakers, writers using this structure, it helps create characters we relate to
Absolutely. Builds tension, engages us emotionally because we recognize the journey.
and helps make those endings stick. The catharsis, the message.
Definitely. It provides that satisfying sense of completion, of meaning.
It's more than just formula.
Much more. And it's not just for entertainment. Think about politics.
How so?
Well, political campaigns, public messaging, crafting a compelling narrative is crucial.
Using the hero's journey structure.
You bet. Sometimes it's less about the policy details and more about, the vibes.
The vibes.
Yeah. Does the story resonate? Does it frame the candidate or the movement as the hero, fighting adversity, promising a better future?
So the campaign is the call to adventure for voters. Overcoming apathy, joining the cause.
Exactly. With the candidate as mentor, facing the ordeal of the election or challenging the status quo.
And the elixir is the promised change.
Right. It taps into those deep psychological needs for purpose, for transformation, for being part of something bigger,
Makes politics feel like a quest.
which is incredibly motivating. Understanding that story structure is a powerful tool for anyone trying to connect with people on that deeper level.
Finally, I thought about the scientists who were trying to map the final frontier. Human consciousness. Let's try to imagine a woman, Dr. Lena Sharma, a brilliant neuroscientist. For years, her work has been guided by a core materialist belief. Every thought, every emotion, every sensation is ultimately a product of electrochemical signals firing in the brain. Consciousness, in this view, is simply an emergent property of complex matter, a sophisticated result of billions of neurons interacting. Her life's mission has been to create a complete, verifiable map of how the brain produces this subjective experience we call consciousness. One day she gets a call. Her younger brother, an avid mountaineer, has been in a fatal accident. She flies home, consumed by a grief that feels physical, immense, a black hole in her universe. Back in her lab a month later, she looks at fMRI scans of brains processing grief. She can point to the activated amygdala, the fluctuating cortisol levels, the specific patterns in the prefrontal cortex associated with emotional regulation. She can describe the mechanics of sadness with stunning precision, charting its neural pathways and biochemical signatures. But as she looks at the glowing pixels on the screen, she realizes, with a sudden, jarring clarity, that the image explains nothing about the actual experience. The shared memories of childhood laughter, the unique texture of her love for her brother, the bottomless void of his absence. The map is not the territory. The scientific description, however accurate and detailed, felt like a black and white photo of a rainbow. This story, which I pieced together from various accounts of scientists having similar crises of faith, highlights the profound limits of a purely empirical epistemology. It doesn't disprove the science, far from it, but it powerfully suggests that a complete understanding of ourselves, of our reality, cannot come from observation alone. It must also make room for the subjective, for the profound, unquantifiable experience of meaning itself. That story, wow. It gets right at this this dominance of scientism, right? This materialist way of looking at things.
Yeah, this default assumption that if you can't measure it or observe it empirically, it's, well, maybe not real, or at least not knowable.
It's not just a scientific method. It's almost a worldview. Reality is only what we can detect.
And Whitehead called that the fallacy of misplaced concreteness.
Mistaking the abstract model, the map, for the actual thing.
Exactly. Reducing the richness of reality to just its measurable bits, like thinking the blueprint is the building.
Kant was talking about this centuries ago, wasn't he? With the thing in itself.
Das Ding an sich, yeah. His point was, we can never grasp reality directly, only as it appears to us, filtered through our minds.
Our minds aren't just passive cameras. They shape the picture.
Right. So no matter how good our instruments get, they're always looking at the phenomenal world, the world of appearances.
Not the underlying reality that creates those appearances.
Which means that pure empiricism, that deep confidence in just data, kind of ignores the role of our own consciousness in making knowledge possible at all.
A powerful lens, but maybe a limited one.
That's a good way to put it. And Dr. Sharma's experience, that disconnect between the brain scan and the feeling of grief.
That's the hard problem of consciousness.
Precisely. Not the easy problem of how the brain processes stuff, which neuroscience is tackling.
But the why? Why does physical stuff in the brain create subjective experience?
The feeling itself, what philosophers call qualia.
Qualia. Like the redness of red, the taste of chocolate, the actual pain of pain.
Or the unique agony of grief. Like in the story, you can map the neurons firing, but that map isn't the experience.
Like the black and white photo of a rainbow.
Perfect analogy. And that's why purely materialist explanations reducing everything to matter feel incomplete to many people.
So you have thinkers like Chalmers leaning towards dualism, consciousness is something separate.
Or Dennett, who, well, his view is complex. He doesn't deny we have experiences like seeing red.
But he denies there's some mysterious, unanalyzable thing.
Right. He thinks they might be reducible to incredibly complex computational properties, these clusters of dispositional properties. We just haven't figured out how yet.
So there's a whole range of materialist views trying to bridge this gap between brain and experience.
Yeah, type A says there's no real gap. Type B says there's a knowledge gap, but not a reality gap. Type C thinks we'll close the gap eventually.
And then there's panpsychism.
That's gaining traction. The idea that maybe consciousness isn't just in complex brains, but is a fundamental property of matter itself, even tiny bits.
Wow. Like consciousness is woven into the universe.
Potentially. It's an attempt to find a middle ground, maybe keeping materialism, but accounting for that subjective experience.
Fascinating. And this problem of grounding meaning, it shows up in cognitive science too, right? Not just philosophy of mind.
Absolutely. The old view was the mind is a computer, just manipulating symbols.
But that hit the symbol grounding problem.
Yeah. How do those abstract symbols, words, ideas actually connect to anything real? How do they get their meaning?
Searle's Chinese room thought experiment nails this, doesn't it?
It really does. The person inside manipulating symbols perfectly, following rules, but having zero understanding.
Just like a computer, Searle argued. If the computer can't understand, maybe a purely symbol-crunching mind can't either.
Which paved the way for embodied cognition.
The idea that the mind isn't separate, but grounded in our body's experiences, our senses, our movements.
Exactly. Meaning isn't just in the symbols, it comes from how we interact with the world.
Through mental simulation.
Yeah.
Like reactivating those experiences.
Right, so hearing kick isn't just processing a word, it's subtly replaying the feeling or action of kicking in your brain.
And there's actual evidence for this.
Oh yeah, increasingly strong evidence. fMRI studies, for example.
Like the Hawk study, showing motor cortex activation for action verbs.
Precisely. Reading kick lights up the leg area, lick lights up the mouth area, just like doing the action.
And the TMS studies, zapping brain areas.
Pulveriller's work. Stimulating the hand area helps you recognize hand-related words faster, shows a direct functional link.
In things like understanding eagle in the sky versus eagle in the nest.
Shows we're building mental pictures based on context using our perceptual systems.
Plus those modality switch costs.
Right.
Being slower if you switch between senses, like touch to vision.
Right. If perception interferes with concepts, they must be linked. Our bodies are part of how we think.
Okay, so the evidence shows sensomotor areas light up, but the big debate is, are they necessary?
Or just byproducts, an echo that doesn't actually do the understanding.
The car makes noise versus car needs noise to run thing.
Exactly. Arguments for necessity often use lesion studies.
Brain damage cases.
Yeah. Damage motor planning areas, you might lose action-verb understanding. Damage visual areas, maybe lose visual noun understanding. That suggests it's crucial.
The counter-arguments.
Parkinson's patients. They have motor problems, but often understand action words just fine.
If motor simulation was essential, they should struggle more.
You'd think so. Or apraxia patients trouble doing actions, but they still recognize the objects and know what they're for.
So motor info might be associated, but maybe not always essential for the core concept.
That's the question. Which makes abstract concepts the really hard part for strong embodiment theories.
Right. How do you embody justice or truth or numbers? What's the sensor-motor link there?
That's where metaphors come in. Lakoff and Johnson's idea.
That we understand abstract things through concrete bodily metaphors, like grasping an idea.
Exactly. And studies show motor areas can activate for these metaphorical uses too.
But maybe less so for really common metaphors. They become more abstract.
Seems that way. Sensory-motor involvement might fade as meaning gets more abstract.
Which leads to ideas like Damasio's convergence zones.
These integration areas near the sensory-motor cortices, like hubs that pull together different sensory inputs.
To form higher-level concepts.
Right. And the hub and spoke model builds on this.
With the anterior temporal lobe, the ATL, as the main hub.
Yeah, integrating everything into abstract, generalized concepts, independent of any one sense.
And the evidence from semantic dementia supports this.
Strongly. Damage to the ATL causes broad conceptual loss across the board, concrete and abstract, suggesting it's that central hub.
So maybe a weak embodiment is the way forward. Sensorimotor is foundational, but we need these integration hubs for abstraction.
That seems like the most promising direction. It kind of reconciles the embodied and the more abstract emotional views.
Okay, so pulling these threads together, the universal stories, the innate sense of justice, the limits of just measuring consciousness.
It all circles back to what Husserl called the crisis of European sciences.
Reducing everything to the quantifiable and losing meaning and value in the process.
Right. Science tells us how things work, the neurology of empathy, the evolution of cooperation.
But not why it matters, the significance, the ought.
Exactly. It can't grasp that normative force, the existential weight. That belongs to what Max Weber called the sphere of values.
A realm of meaning beyond just cause and effect.
And you can't reduce it without losing the core of human experience.
Which really points to the need for something like metaphysics, doesn't it? Even if that word sounds old-fashioned.
It's essential. Even postmodern critiques trying to deconstruct metaphysics end up relying on their own values, honesty, liberation.
Which aren't empirically provable either. Their own metaphysics of liberation.
You could say that. And look at the ecological crisis. Purely technical or economic fixes aren't enough.
But you need a deeper shift. A metaphysical conversion.
A change in how we see our relationship to nature, recognizing its sacred dimension, not just its utility.
Like in many indigenous traditions. Green time, great spirit.
Exactly. Those are sophisticated metaphysical frameworks articulating a sacred relationship, a way to live in harmony.
So metaphysics provides that eternal dimension, the source of deep values, meaning, purpose.
The axiological dimension, things that can't be boiled down to data points.
And maybe our modern crisis of meaning comes from trying to exclude that dimension.
It strongly suggests that. We've systematically sidelined these structures. Maybe we need a hermeneutics of retrieval.
To actively recover that wisdom. Not as dogma, but for its existential depth.
Yes, to recognize that the deepest truths might not always be measurable.
What an incredible journey we've been on in this deep dive. From realizing that, yeah, somehow cultures worlds apart tell the same core story.
The hero's journey popping up everywhere.
To that deep down human sense of fairness, that transcendental intuition, pushing for justice beyond just what systems seem to work on paper.
Yeah, these universal patterns running through our stories, our politics, even our minds.
And how they constantly push back against a purely empirical, just the facts view of the world.
And we saw that challenge extend right into the heart of consciousness, that subjective feeling that science struggles to explain purely materially.
Right, and how our search for meaning seems tied not just to abstract thoughts, but to our bodies, our experiences, maybe even a connection to something larger.
These aren't just, philosophical games. They feel like fundamental parts of being human, baked into our psychology, our societies.
Shaping how we see everything. Our stories, our laws.
And ultimately, maybe our understanding of reality itself and where we fit in the grand scheme of things.